So, task 2. So task 2 basically is looking at what you've done in task 1 in terms of what are the trends that you've noticed in your physical activity, what are their influences, and then task 2 is what are you going to do about those to maintain your physical activity through the rest of your life. What you've got in that sheet that I've given you is a plan or a structure of what, how, why and so what. And what you are to do is you are to take an age group of 18 to 25, 25 to 30 and 30 plus, and you are to look at what the potential barriers and enablers are for physical activity in each of those age groups, and then look at some strategies, 1 or 2 strategies that you're going to use to overcome those barriers or promote those enablers. The way I suggest you do it is you do, say, 18 to 25, what, how, why, so what, then start another one, 25 plus, what, how, why, so what, and then 30 plus, what, how, why, so what. What you're looking for in terms of length is about a page and a half to 2 pages. Okay? For those of you that have only questioned one assumption on in task 1B, what you should do is try and question an assumption in task 2. And that then covers that descriptor that you have to meet for the standard, which says challenge assumptions, which means 2 or more. Okay? If you've challenged really well, there's about 5 or 6 of us in the class, 2 assumptions in task 1B, you don't necessarily have to do that. You still have to push for high quality, but you don't necessarily have to push for challenging another assumption. Alright? What we've got here is some research. So what we've done, I think you were here when we started it, we started reading those documents and then pulling out some facts and putting them in from the research in answer to those questions I gave you. Okay? What I've done is, in Classroom, I've taken those off you, I've PDF'd them and put them up on Classroom. So that's some of your research that you can refer back to, and we can have a look at how you use that. I think Chris and Daniel started and they've given some good examples. So what you need to do is, first of all, think about what you want to be doing. Okay, at 18 to 25, 25 to 30 and 30 plus.
What if you really don't know?
It's a wish list. Okay, so what you do is you think, what would I like to be doing? Have a look at people that are out there now that you'd like to be like, perhaps, okay? But very realistic about it as well. Okay, alright? Does that make sense? So if you don't play rugby and you say I want to be an All Black, it's not going to wash, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay? So it's a wish list, and don't stress too much over it. Just put down some ideas. And think about it, if you think about 18 to 25, you can say you're probably a little bit more sure about that than you are 30 plus. So you can be pretty, vague about 30 plus. You can say, I'd like to be married and I'd like to have kids. Now, that's enough, alright? Because those are life situations you want to be in. Does that make sense? Okay? So that's the first thing, and you've got a template there to help you do that. So this is basically looking at how, why. How, why are you going to, what are the barriers there for your participation in physical activity for that age group? What do you think they'll be? What are the enablers that you might have? Okay, alright? What assumptions should be made about your future participation? So, and I'll leave it, what barrier enablers? Let's just have a look at that first and foremost. So let's have a look at what the research is telling us. Okay, so when you have a look at the research, some of you looked at this article and we had a look at what are adults doing for physical activity. And you can see that you've got walking, swimming, cycling, equipment-based exercise, fishing, all the way through to Pilates and yoga. And then we have dance all the way through to touch rugby. Someone think about, just give me some trends, what's happening there about that physical activity? What is it about that physical activity that jumps out at you? Yeah, low impact. Good. Okay. Cool. That's one trend you might want to look at.
That's like individual.
Yeah, individual sports. Good. Okay, so less team-based sports. In fact, when is the first actual team-based sport? Comes down with football. And then the next one really is netball, cricket and touch rugby. If you look at the actual participation, it's quite low. Okay? Right, so that's a trend. Alright? What's an assumption that could fall out of that, do you think?
As you get older, it's more family and these things.
That's
Could
harder
be.
to
Yes,
coordinate.
that's a good one. Yes. Pardon?
It's harder to coordinate with other people.
Yeah, that's more of a barrier.
Oh.
Okay? That's more of a barrier. That's a good identification of a barrier. But if you think back to the beginning of this and I talked about physical activity, did a lot of you just automatically think sport?
Yeah.
Team sport? Okay? So then an assumption could be that physical activity has to be in team sports. But in fact, the research is telling us, no, it's not. You see what I mean? And you might use this research to debunk that or challenge that assumption. Okay? So that, we'll start to see how we can challenge assumptions now within task 2, if that's where you need to go. Okay? Down to barriers. What else what are they telling us about barriers? The research is telling us that basically it appears that it is time is the biggest barrier, a lack of time. Okay? Followed by cost, but a distant second. Right? So that will be something that I think most of you will probably want to investigate. Right? How are you going to get around it? What are some of the things that you can do to get around the barrier of time? You've hit it on it. You do individual sports, so you don't have to rely on other people. Right? You're the, you know what I mean? You're the sole person that you have to worry about. Who's heard of pay-to-play options?
I like Reddit when we did that thing. Is it like just for action or something?
Yeah. So pay-to-play is you pay and you pay whenever you want. All right. Another example is an exercise class like Pump, or I don't know, is Pump still out there? Yeah, Zumba or something like that, where you pay, you choose a class you go along to and you pay, so it suits your lifestyle. Okay. So I think Chris and Daniel started talking about that. I think maybe Daniel more so is talking about he's going to be at university, he's going to be pushing towards medicine, he's going to want to be removing the barrier of time, and he started to think about pay-to-play options. Okay? Okay, so lack of time. Now this is another one. Looking at the barriers, the second point, to both trying a new activity and doing more of an existing one. Lack of time is more likely to be a barrier for people of 25 to 49 years of age. Okay? Why might that be? Preston.
It's like the time in your life that you're working lots.
Yep.
And you have family commitments.
Good. Time of your life where you're working lots and you've got family commitments, etc. Okay? So here's something that I'll share a bit about how I keep fit nowadays. I'm 42, I've got 2 kids, and I want to spend as much time with them as possible. I've cut down my only physical activity outside of the family stuff is surfing, and part of the allure of that is social, because the 5 guys I surf with normally were all either my best man or groomsmen, so it's kind of like my coffee club, I go to the pub with them, we go and surf. The other thing is we brought a trampoline for the kids about 3 years ago, but I bounce around on that. I do 20 minutes of a particular workout which I've constructed myself, because 20 minutes is all I can really afford, but it's the biggest bang for my buck, and research tells me that, because bouncing on a trampoline for 20 minutes is the equivalent of going for a 60-minute run.
What?
So you can see how I've started to remove the time barrier, and if I was to talk about that in mine, task 2, I'd be talking about those barriers. I'm mixing a social thing with a physical thing to keep my order up, both socially and physically, but also I've got some research which backs me up that the exercise I'm doing is actually getting more bang for my buck. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay, enablers. So basically enablers are things that enable you, or what do you call it? Make it easier for you to do physical activity. So for example, man-made facilities. Okay, so what's around you, you might go and live, try and live as close to the gym as possible. Alright? Yep. So that you can cut down that barrier of time again. You might try and live as close to where you work, so you can either walk, run or ride to work, so that your physical activity is that. Does that make sense? Yep. So what? Okay, so basically, once you've identified the barriers, this is where you talk about the strategies. Okay, these are my barriers, and then the so what section is, okay, this is what I'm actually going to do about it. Now, for level 3, it's not good enough to say, okay, I'm going to play some social football. What you need to do is you need to quickly look up online somewhere so wherever you're going to be. Say if you're going down to Otago, look up Otago football social teams and find out where some of the clubs are, or what they offer, what age groups they offer it at, etc., so that you can say, as you can see through research, there is 3 or 4 different clubs that offers these particular teams, and that's where I will be trying to aim to go towards. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We're nearly there. Okay? And always link it back to 2 things. 1, your well-being. So how is that going to impact on your well-being? Not just your physical well-being, but also how does that find your social, mental and spiritual? Okay? Alright? And the only other thing is, you must link this back to task 1. So if you've identified that the biggest, in future what you'll be doing is, start again. If in one of the logs in primary, intermediate or secondary you've identified that it's going to affect your future participation because you want to try and find an activity that's going to keep you as social as possible, that must then come out in the strategies in task 2. Does that make sense? Alright? There's no use doing that in task 1 and then all of a sudden saying, oh, I'm going to be a triathlete and spend hours and hours by myself on a bicycle. Because that doesn't quite gel. Alright? And that's where you'll lose grades. Okay? Alright? Finally, let's have a look at some of the assumptions. Okay? So, some assumptions that you might want to challenge. Physical activity is less important to women. Okay? Alright? The main reason for physical activity is in adults improve physical well-being or health. Now that's a really big one that you guys could investigate because most of you, or everybody's identified that physical activity has an impact more than just your physical health. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yep. So you can challenge that big time. And then the other one we talked about is participation means playing sport, organised sport. And that's something I think we've all kind of learned that that's not actually the case, or seems to be not the case. Does it make sense? Okay. The final bit here is just some other interesting stats. So the most common reason participants take part in physical activity is for fitness and health, enjoyment and social reasons. Okay. How might you use that research to back up what you're saying? Men are more likely than women to be a member of at least one club, gym or centre. The proportion of participants who said sports performance was a reason tended to decrease from one age group to the next. So basically performance became less important the older you got. Does that make sense? Right? It was more about other things that was getting you to do physical activity. Participants living in large urban areas were more likely to be a member of a gym than those living in small urban areas. And men were more likely than women to have said enjoyment, social reasons and sport performance were the main factors influencing you to do PA, while women were more likely to say fitness and health, low cost and convenience. So how much you use that, I don't know. That's up to you guys. Alright? Just, Chris, do you mind if I just quickly show what you've done? Okay, probably stop now there.